tonight's talk's about anxiety and depression. And I was actually quite surprised a couple of weeks ago when we were working on the publicity for this talk, to find out that as many as 1 in 4 people in the UK in any given year are suffering from some sort of mental health condition. The reason I was so surprised about that is because it means that statistically, at any sort of given moment in time, it must mean that a good bunch of my friends and my colleagues must be suffering with some sort of mental health problems. And yet, very few of them ever sort of mention this, and very rarely actually comes up in conversation. In fact, as many as 8% of people in the UK in any given year meet the clinical definition of suffering from anxiety or depression, which are the 2 most common mental health conditions in this country. And while I've had friends and while I've had members of my own team at work suffering from both anxiety and depression, I realised that I myself actually know very little about these conditions and what they mean for people. So the purpose of tonight's talk is really twofold. And firstly, we want to look at defining and understanding what these conditions actually mean and what the terms mean. And then secondly, we want to go on and look at sort of what are the practical things that people can do to either support other people or to recognise the condition themselves and to help as coping mechanisms. So we've got 2 panellists tonight, both experts in their field, to help us explore all these things. Iman Ben Ahmed is a counsellor and psychotherapist with a specialist interest in community mental health. And Shaykh Haytham Tamim is the founder and the main teacher at the Utrujj Foundation. Please give them both a very warm welcome. Okay, so just to explain the format of how we're going to run this evening, I'm going to invite both Iman and the Shaykh to address us for about 15 minutes each or so, just in their areas. And then that should leave us plenty of time to open things up to discussion and questions and things. I know I've had a couple of questions that have been submitted online sort of ahead of tonight, but I want to open things up and allow sort of discussion and Q&A as well. Just remember as well, if you're on social media, if you've got friends and followers who aren't here tonight but you want to let them know what's going on, you can take photos, you can tag us in your tweets and your posts. On both Twitter and on Instagram, we're at the City Circle, and if you're on Twitter, if you're tweeting, just use the hashtag CCTalks. So our first speaker tonight, as I said, is Iman Ben Ahmed. She's a qualified psychotherapist with specialist interest in community mental health work. She's passionate about providing mental health training and advocacy, and she's delivered mental health training at a number of universities here in the UK to promote well-being, as well as providing peer support and signposting. She's worked with lots of charities and community organisations to provide counselling and mental health support. Some of those include Place to Be, Inspired Minds, Hestia, St Mungo's, Family Action, and in the NHS. She's currently working to support families and those affected by the Grenfell fire tragedy a couple of years ago, where she works as a counsellor and family support worker, helping with the well-being of those affected, and to promote individual and community healing after the tragedy. So, Iman, over to you.
Hi everyone. Sounds really loud. Thank you for coming. I've been given 15 minutes to talk about depression and anxiety. That's mission impossible, but it doesn't stop us from starting the conversation. And please feel free to give your questions at the end as well. I know I won't be able to cover all of it or maybe address everything that you're here for, but that's what Q&A is for. So I wanted to start off by asking you guys all to close your eyes. Some of you might be uncomfortable, so it's okay if you don't want to, but try. So if you have, and make sure you keep your eyes closed, if you have been affected by mental health or had a mental health issue, raise your hand. If you know anyone that has been affected, either a family member, keep your hands up by the way, a family member, a colleague, neighbor, so anyone that you know that has been affected one way or the other by mental health. So keep your hands up, raise them high, open your eyes, keep your hands up, open your eyes, look around. That's almost everybody in this room. And I think the reason I do this is because sometimes when we say 1 in 4. Sometimes, yeah, if we talk about a family of 4, that's 1 person in each family. But normally that's usually a diagnosed mental health problem. And we know a lot of people that aren't diagnosed or haven't reached for help. So it's actually a lot more than that. But I'm not saying that to get you all to despair. That's actually the fact that you all raise your hands in here is a good sign, because that means you guys recognize it. That means you guys are here to learn more about it so you could help. So I'm actually excited about that. Just because we talk about depression and anxiety doesn't mean we have to, feel sad about it. So after that, I think that takes us to stigma. And I think I already see heads nodding. That's a big issue in our community. Again, not to despair, but to recognize that, okay, we're here, we're interested in learning, but how do we take that back to our communities, our family, friends? So we are the people that need to start that conversation. And sometimes we don't have the tools and we might not feel confident enough to talk about it. But today, hopefully you know enough to be able to at least recognize either things in yourself, within yourself, whether you feel anxious or depressed, or somebody around you. So I hope you all are excited to learn more. So depression, raise your hands, how many people have heard of depression? Almost everyone, right? And it's a term that is commonly used now, very lightly sometimes. So, I'm feeling depressed, or, it's kind of a synonym for sad, right? But there's a difference between depression and sadness. Sadness is normally a period of time that normally passes, whether an event happened or you're feeling down. Depression persists, so it's at least 2 weeks of persistent symptoms, feeling down, feeling uninterested, whether it's lack of sleep or sleeping too much, lack of appetite or eating too much. And I know this could be really confusing because it's one end or the other, but everyone experiences it differently, and that's the point. Not everyone that is depressed looks the same, not everyone that's anxious looks the same or kind of portrays those traits similarly. So how do we know, right? So we said 2 weeks continuously. If after 2 weeks you notice that you're feeling better, someone around you is feeling better, that means it's a period of time that they've been through and it's over. If it keeps going, then that would be most likely a bit of a concern that needs to be addressed. And usually professional help helps. So I'm biased as I'm a counselor, so I'm just like, yes, everyone can do counseling, of course, please come on through. But I know that in and of itself, talking about the stigma, isn't easy to reach up, get help, or actually recognize within yourself that you need that help. So the first step would be, on that note, acknowledgement. So recognizing actually, I'm feeling down, I've been feeling this way, and I don't really know exactly what it is sometimes, so that's a difficulty. So it's not, like grief, there's a reason, and even grief, if it lasts a bit too long and it leads to all these symptoms, then that is still considered depression. So I want you guys, I'm usually jumping around, by the way, because that's how I get a bit anxious presenting. I don't know if that's obvious. But that's the way I express my anxiety, is I let my energy out by jumping around. But I'm going to get you guys to talk to each other and kind of bounce ideas off of each other in terms of how you think depression manifests either in you or someone that you know. So how do you think that, given what I've told you, I haven't told you much because I want you to discuss it between yourselves. How do you think that you might be depressed? And this isn't a way to diagnose yourself, but even to see, okay, actually, this is concerning me, whether it's about yourself or somebody else. So talk to each other, share how much you know about depression, and then we'll come back. So please feel free to chat. Does anyone want to share anything that they discussed in the group that they think is worth sharing? Or even if you don't think it is, it's okay. Alright, not all at once, guys. Alright, there we go.
So we talked about the triggers for depression. So we talked about the fact that it could be from a bereavement, when someone close to you passed away. It could be from maybe getting made redundant, losing your job, having money problems, getting divorced, postnatal depression from having a child. So there's sort of lots of different life events that can happen that can lead to depression. And then we sort of talked about what you do when you're feeling depressed or what you don't do. So for example, like you said, sleeping too much or not sleeping at all, but also not wanting to shower, like neglecting your personal hygiene, stop talking to your friends, distancing yourself from the community, not wanting to leave the house, and just literally totally withdrawing into yourself and not wanting to kind of do anything because you feel like it's not worth it.
Thank you. Actually, that summed it up really well, because so I could sit here and tell you guys all the different signs and everything, but kind of when you talk to each other, you realize, you know, that you actually know more than you think about these things and kind of symptoms, and you probably recognize them in people that you know, or even yourself sometimes. But there are ways to deal with that. So in the beginning with depression, like I said, you know, that lack of interest, that tiredness and all of that, sometimes it's really hard to get motivated to improve, right? So that's where society, the social circle, family, friends, all that is really important. So again, like I said, even if it's not you guys going through that, you recognizing that in someone else and hopefully pulling them out. Because sometimes we're too scared, again with the stigma and the community and all of that, we're too scared to say, oh, we don't want to intrude. Okay, you don't need to know everything about that, what that person's going through, but you can just say, hey, I'm here, you want to just grab coffee, if you want to go out for a walk, and being a bit persistent if you have that kind of connection with that person, because that makes all the difference, connecting them, making them realize, actually, me going out makes me feel better, because once you're in that place, it's really hard to get out. And I think we're using the terms today, depression and anxiety, very clinical terms actually. Like I said, sometimes we use sadness and all of that. And even culturally, sometimes they might not resonate with some cultures, communities, like what is this depression thing you're talking about? No, we're fine, it's going to be Quran, and it's going to be fine. Don't get me wrong, Quran helps. But it's not the only tool that's out there, especially if you're feeling down. So maybe, again, even approaching that friend or family member, depending on whether they're open to receiving that type of feedback, not saying, hey, it looks like you're depressed. That normally doesn't work, right? And I know you guys would do that, but even steering away from the terms, the terminology, depression, anxiety, saying, okay, I notice you're a bit down, you know, that language, making it a bit more relatable. And again, I know the title, depression and anxiety, but it doesn't always have to be that. Even when I speak to my clients and community members, I rarely mention clinical terms, because at the end of the day, it's how they manifest. It's the symptoms and how it actually affects their life. So there's so many terms out there, but it's more about how do you see the actual manifestation and how they are in everyday life. And I say they, could be us, could be anybody that we know. So it's kind of like equipping you guys with that, you know, lens of seeing, oh, actually it looks like that person hasn't showered in a while, there's family member, whoever it is, or they haven't showed up to the social circle. You know, maybe you guys come to the city circle every week, you notice this person hasn't been there for a while, just reaching out saying, hey, I don't need to know everything, but I'm just here for you. So that's one tip. Social circle is really important. Exercise, if that's what you're into, really does help. And you have a lot of success stories of people that got out there, started working on their health, on their body, and it affected their mental health as well. So there's connection. I don't know if there's any doctors in the room. I know maybe there's one here. So they show you that kind of exercise actually makes the brain healthier, the body, all of that. And that really has a direct relationship to mental health. If you're not into sports, and that's not anything, creativity, art, anything that channels your energy into something beneficial. And when I say beneficial, doesn't mean that, you know, it has this direct impact on everybody. No, even a piece of art that is beneficial to, you know, put out that energy into something. So there's quite a few things depending on your interests, and this is where I'm going to get you guys to discuss again. I like to do it very, my talk's quite interactive because, again, I feel like there's a lot more out there than what I'm saying. So share with each other what you feel like would help if you think somebody's going through depression, or even yourself, even if you're feeling down, so not necessarily depressed, like I said. So share with each other what types of tools that you could use if you are feeling that way. And get you to talk to each other about that. No, I think you guys said two really important things. So in the beginning was acknowledgement. So acknowledge that that person's going through a tough time. Not like, oh, come on, snap out of it. You know, let's just go have some ice cream. That can help, but also acknowledging that I see you. I see what you're going through. Again, I might not know everything. You might not tell me everything, but I'm here for that. And I think someone, when they realize that they have someone to talk to, even if they don't talk. So I think this is sometimes, I don't want to be come across as sexist or anything like that. Sometimes men want to talk, but sometimes, a lot of the time, they don't. So it's not, or women as well, not everyone wants to talk. But acknowledging, actually, I see that you're going through a tough time, is really powerful, because that person, when they are ready to talk, if they know that there is someone there. And knowing that someone's there in and of itself is healing, it's useful. And that's why I said, even you reaching out and you don't hear back, or you hear that kind of, oh, no, that could still be helpful. Trust me, because sometimes someone can feel shunned, right? Like, oh, I tried to help, and they're not improving and anything like that. Sometimes it's not within our hands to get someone out of that situation. All we can do is say, we're here to support. And that goes a really long way. And again, I don't want to make it sound like, oh, that's it, that's all you got to do, but that's actually a big part of the work, so acknowledging what they're going through. So it's speaking to someone, socializing, a healthy diet as well. Diet is really important. Some types of food, if you keep eating them, make you feel lethargic, it can contribute actually to you feeling down. So maybe changing that up a bit, experimenting with new recipes that are healthy. And sometimes it gets to a point where it's too much and professional help is needed, and that is okay as well. So this goes to yourselves, or if you're supporting someone, if you've tried everything, and you feel like you've tried everything, sometimes it's saying, actually, I found this number somewhere, and maybe we can call it together and we can speak to someone that can help us. Because the whole point of a counselor, someone that's a mental health professional, isn't for you to be dependent on them, but for them to give you those tools to help you get out of it. So if anything, you're just getting more help to become more independent in your understanding your condition, but also getting out of it, hopefully. So that quickly covers depression. I know it doesn't cover the whole thing, but I'm going to move on swiftly to anxiety. And I've mentioned that I get anxiety when I speak in public, but I love speaking in public. So it's quite a contradiction, isn't it? So the difference between an anxiety disorder and just an anxiety that passes eventually, there's quite a big difference. So there's types of anxieties that are actually necessary that we go through as humans, whether before an exam, before any type of performance, going out in public where all eyes are on you. That is actually a lot of pressure, and some people cannot handle it. They can avoid these scenarios altogether when it comes to exams. I don't know if you guys know anybody that went through exams recently or is going through them at the moment. It's actually a really tough time. So anxiety is almost a normal response, but it's more about how you deal with it and how to control it in a way where it doesn't lead you, it doesn't guide you, it doesn't take you out of control or pull you out of situations where you can actually develop or you can actually benefit everybody else. So I know coming up here, I'm just like, oh my God, I feel the initial kind of jitters, and then I'm up here, I'm like, hey, everyone's nice, I'm talking about something that I love, and so I'm over that anxiety in the sense that it didn't control me. I didn't come up here and say, oh, actually, no, I can't do it. And that's fine, because not everybody wants to be up here. And that's okay, but it's more about if this becomes really persistent, where anxiety becomes a fear, where it guides you in a way that you start not being able to leave the house, not being able to talk to people. And again, similar to depression, if we're talking about it in a clinical sense, it has to persist for over 2 weeks. The symptoms are withdrawing from certain situations that cause you fear. And again, fear is also a normal, natural response to things that are scary. So it would actually worry me if there's a tiger somewhere and everyone's like, oh no, that's fine. You should be afraid. You should run. That's a normal human reaction. And if you don't, probably come see me afterwards. But so that's a normal response. But if you start feeling things that don't harm you directly. So if I come up here and think, you know what, I can't do it because I'm afraid of the judgment of people, or I'm afraid of kind of being up here and stuttering, for example, well, what's going to happen if I stutter? Is that going to be something that I fear to a point where it prevents me from going up here? So I'm using myself as an example, I'm putting myself out there, because this is something very common. Most people go through it in one situation or the other, and it's important to acknowledge that as well. But also there are the different anxieties where it becomes, for example, phobias. Have any of you heard of phobias? So there's certain fears where, you know, it doesn't actually harm you, but you feel like, I cannot go there. So the help with that there can be professional help for that as well, because sometimes we're so used to a level of fear from a very young age. So you can tell from, you know, children that grow up, for example, being afraid of cats or dogs or whatever, they carry that with them to adulthood, and it becomes really difficult to challenge that, so you can get help. Either if you're really brave and kind of put yourself out there, throw yourself in front of a dog, or actually get help if you feel like you need that help. If you live in a place where you're constantly passing by, for example, you know, there's an area where people constantly walk their dogs, then that would be an issue if you stop leaving your house. Does that make sense? So in terms of anxiety, actually, one last time, we'll get you to talk to each other in terms of what are the things that cause you anxiety, and how do you get through it? How do you deal with it? Going back to the symptoms of anxiety, so you guys might have discussed that in your groups as well. So how does it manifest? So the thing is with anxiety, it manifests in a very physical manner, right? So whether it's sweaty hands, breathing becomes difficult, so constricting chest, also trembling, feeling weak or tired, feeling a panic, unease, and all of that stuff, your body feels that, right? So sometimes you experience something and then your body automatically reacts and you don't even know what's going on. So your palms are sweating before you even recognize that. And actually part of the tips and mechanisms of dealing with anxiety is actually recognizing when your body's going through that. So now I'm thinking, okay, am I trembling? Are my hands sweaty? I think I'm feeling a bit anxious. And it might feel a bit strange, or you might notice it, but it's more kind of being mindful. We talk about mindfulness and being aware of our own body, because the moment I know I'm anxious, that's when I can start to deal with it. And that's kind of the next step. So if my chest is really constricted because of anxiety, what would help that? Breathing, deep breath, exactly. So again, some of you might think, well, how's breathing going to help me, right? But actually, because the body reacts first, breathing is reacting to the body. So it might not solve what's going on in your head about fear and all of that, but you're kind of counteracting what's actually already happening. So when you start breathing, and everyone has a different way of calming themselves down. There's a few breathing techniques if you go on YouTube, mindfulness techniques. So there's I don't know if you guys know I don't know actually what it's called, I just call it the hand breathing thing. So if you breathe in, going up with your finger, out, going down. So if you can all do it. It might not work for you, so there's quite a few different ones, but this, because it's on the hand, so it's almost like you're soothing yourself. You're going kind of, so breathe in, out. And that is a way for you to slow down as well. So because you're focusing on your hand and your fingers, that almost kind of distracts you a little bit. And that is enough for your body to slow down a bit. Again, like I said, it might not be kind of what your mind is going through, because that can go 100 miles an hour. But your body, because it's reacting, what you're doing is slowing down your body. And in the beginning, I actually didn't believe in breathing exercises. I put my hands up to that, because I was just like, oh, how's breathing going to help me? And every time I started breathing, I started yawning, and I was like, this isn't helping me. But then I actually started doing it because I was doing a course on that, and I was just like, okay, fine, I'll do it. And then it actually worked, and I realized that it helps. So that could work for you guys. Again, even with the hand thing, you could do it under a table, you can do it, you could breathe without having to do anything, but that's something that can soothe you. So breathing exercises. Physical exercises are also really good. So if you have all this kind of energy, you can kind of go for a walk or a run. That also helps actually, because the body has that release. Similar to depression, some sort of creative activity, cooking, some people can find that soothing. So anything that and you guys, I don't know, did you guys share with each other what helps you with your anxiety, or just what makes you anxious? You guys want to discuss it with each other? quite a British crowd today. Okay, so
There's a lot of discussion. Some of us have some ideas.
Like listening to music really helps me, and singing and like doing meditation. You can get like on YouTube like a 10-minute meditation thing. So it doesn't take up a lot of time, but it's quite like relaxing.
Yeah, and that's the creative side, isn't it?
Yeah.
Kind of trying to distract your mind and get you to something that doesn't kind of keep you in your head, right? Something external. That's really good, actually.
Yeah, 'cause sometimes you can have like all this like chaotic things going on in your mind, and you've got like a million and one things
Yeah.
that pop into your mind, and you're thinking all the time. And then when you kind of just have to stop thinking and you're doing the meditation and sometimes focusing on different parts of your body, it just, I don't know, it just helps relax me really.
Meditation helps a lot.
Try and talk to yourself, rationalize what's actually, talk to yourself, tell yourself, rationalize what's actually going on. There's all these 100 million things going on in your mind. Actually get a piece of paper and actually say what is actually happening, rather than overreacting and thinking, oh, for example, I'm going to lose my job, I'm going to lose my job, I'm going to lose my job. And I say that I'll actually write down, I'm actually still in a job. You know, what did my manager or employer actually tell me? What's the actual fact? And let's take it from there.
That really helps. Actually, that was my next point, self-talk. So have you done cognitive behavior therapy? Because that's basically what they go down. So even if you get some therapy, they take you down kind of the cognitions and then how you behave based on your thoughts. Right, like I said, if I'm feeling anxious coming up here, I'm telling myself, actually, you know what, I've done this so many times before, and I did okay, I think, and, you know, nothing happened, I've survived, and, you know, again, science seems like a friendly crowd, they're interested in mental health, so they're not going to be judgmental. I hope so. So all of these things, they can become automatic, they can become part of how you deal with things. So in the beginning it might feel unnatural, like bringing a piece of paper, but that actually helps because it starts becoming part of the way that you deal with things. So the moment you get this irrational thought in terms of like, oh my God, everything's going to be over, I'm going to lose my job, I'm going to die, all of those thoughts, kind of sitting down, slowing down, thinking actually, what's actually happening right now, how am I dealing with it? And getting into that habit, it can be a bit...
Staying in the moment.
Staying in the moment, exactly. And that's the whole point of mindfulness as well, staying mindful of, okay, I'm actually grounded here, my body's so safe, I'm okay, on all of that, and thinking, okay, rather than my mind going all the way with what's going to happen tomorrow, next year, the year after, it's more about, okay, I'm here now, and I'm okay. And those are, again, exercises that you get to practice and develop. This isn't something that's going to happen overnight. Sometimes challenging yourself can be difficult, but the moment you've done it, it's like, oh, okay, I did that. Even when you talk about exams, for example, people that went through exams, how many exams have you done before that? And at the time before that, you got through all of that, and even if you didn't get through one exam, you're here now. Something happened that got you over that obstacle. So even part of self-talk is going back to previous experiences. So drawing back on previous experiences, actually I'm okay, I did that before and I'm okay. And whether the event turned out to be okay or not, so if I pass an exam, that's okay, actually I passed this exam before, or something similar. If I failed it, I'm here now talking to you guys, you don't know I failed an exam. You know, I'm okay. So going back and reminding yourself, actually, you're going to be okay. And not in a way just, oh, you're going to be okay. It's more about, no, I have evidence that shows that I went through similar stressful situations and I got through it. And that's part of the self-talk, reassuring yourself, actually, I'm going to be okay through this. And that can work with other people as well. Not bombarding them saying, oh, you're going to be okay, no, you're going to be fine. It's more about kind of seeing what their worries are first and thinking, okay, what are you basing that on? Actually, you're doing okay, actually, you know, and kind of giving that feedback back to them rather than just saying you're going to be okay. So you're kind of giving evidence. Does that make sense? So kind of proof that that person can get through that thing. Or because they have gone through it before, or because you think they have the skills to get through something new as well. And again, I understand this could be a bit theoretical, so if you have any questions later on and how to apply certain things or deal with things more specifically, feel free to ask them. And if anything gets too overwhelming and you feel like all of this is actually really difficult, there is professional help, and I don't emphasize that enough, because sometimes it takes that extra step, that push. If you need that professional help, that's okay, because that's what that person is there for, to help you develop these skills yourself, so you could end up using them and even teaching them to others. So it's actually a positive thing if you kind of recognize, actually I feel like I need development in this aspect, or I feel like I need help in this element. And you know, it's time that we got over the stigma. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Iman, and thank you to all of you for the sort of really good contributions and discussion there along the way as well. Our next speaker tonight, many of you will already know, Shaykh Haytham Tamim. He's the founder and the main teacher of the Utrujj Foundation, and he's provided a leading vision of Islamic learning in the UK, which is influencing the way in which Islamic knowledge is disseminated in the country. He's got over 30 years' experience in Islamic jurisprudence, and has looked at all of the four main schools of Islamic thought. He gave his first sermon to a large audience when he was only 17. So talking about anxiety, I was going to say he was sitting and suffered from it too much himself. But he then went on to serve as a senior lecturer in Beirut at the Islamic University of Beirut there, specialising in Islamic transactions and comparative jurisprudence. He now holds some of the highest certificates in Quran, Hadith and Fiqh. And he continues to teach, and in 2015 he won the British Imams and Scholars Contributions Achievement Award for an outstanding contribution to education and teaching. So, Shaykh Haytham Tamim.
Just cut the introduction, make it one line, Haytham Tamim, and that's it. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen, sallallahu ala sayyidina Muhammad wa alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Samira insisted that you should come. So this is not my speciality, but I have an interest in psychology and the way the Quran treats the minds and the souls. So I said, okay, I'll share my experience from an Islamic point of view, not on psychology as a specialist, but to go through the Quran. Of course, I can't go through everything, but I'll take you through a very short journey, which we shared in our course and our circles with some sisters circles only. And Surah Al-Imran, the 3rd chapter in the Quran, it starts the journey for the rehabilitation, I call it. 120, Surah Al-Imran, till 180 in Surah Al-Imran. And to summarize what's in these verses, it talks about the aftermath after Uhud, after the Muslims were defeated in the battle of Uhud. So how did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala rehabilitate the whole community? It's not one individual. I was amazed. The more I read, the more I reflect, wow, it's not just taking one individual, it's taking the whole community together. Because you know, it's not those who were defeated in the battlefield will be depressed, but their families, the whole community, the society, it's the whole package. So when you read these verses, I'll just take you through what did I find in these verses. Of course, instead of saying anxiety and depression, I use the Quranic terms, sadness and fear. The sadness and fear leads to depression and anxiety. So how did the Quran treat sadness? How did the Quran treat fear? I'll probably highlight the very memorized surah for all of you. Surah Quraysh. لإيلاف قريش إيلافهم رحلة الشتاء والصيف فليعبدوا رب هذا البيت الذي أطعمهم من جوع وآمنهم من خوف. So the last ayah in Surah Quraysh, it says, let them worship the Lord of this house who fed them from hunger and gave them security from fear. So security is important. So acknowledging that we have fear, it's okay to have fear, but not to be controlled by fear. The Quran teaches us how not to be controlled by our emotions many times. I cannot tell you how many verses, many times, The Quran talks about sadness and fear and how to get out of that negative side of sadness and the negative side of fear. In many verses as well, we see that Allah Azza wa Jalla speaking to the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, "La tahzan," do not be sad. He was sad. As a human, sadness is part of our emotions. So if somebody has no sadness, he has to probably go to the psychiatrist. Yes? So this is not normal if you cannot have sadness in your life, if you never feel sad. So going through these verses, I've learned something very new to me, to be honest. For instance, one of the tips how to treat sadness or depression, and somehow the Quran mentioned that sleeping is part of it. Of course, if it was very advanced, you lack sleeping, but part of it, if you were sad, go to sleep. I never thought about this, because sometimes when you are sad, you don't want to sleep. You want to rewind and rewind and rewind and go into a second level of sadness. So the Quran suggests, as after Utrujj, and actually amazing, in the battle itself, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made them to sleep in the battle. And the companions, they said, we have, when we slept, I can still feel what's happening around me, and I lost my sword and then I have to pick it up, and then I lost it and I have to pick it up 3-4 times. It wasn't that long, which probably we call it power nap these days, but it is something along these lines. 5 minutes, 10 minutes, I don't know, something like this. But it was very helpful to bring the energy back to the army and then to stand on their feet again, although they were defeated, but to secure an exit. Otherwise, they could have been abolished from the ground. So I went through these verses and I summarized it for you. I'll just go quickly and pause on some of these. So the first thing I came across from 120 onward in Surah Al-Imran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned the importance of sabr and taqwa. Of course, again, sometimes we might ask somebody who's suffering a lot, you practice sabr, akhi, this is wrong, this is lack of iman, you shouldn't take any medication, this is contradicting your... No, this is absolutely wrong. No. Medication doesn't contradict your iman. If you need medication, you need medication, that's it. I received some cases which is not very relevant, but in somehow it is. They said, we have jinn and she's being possessed by jinn, and then you read or recite Quran on her. So this is not my business, I'm not into this business. Yes? But I can assure you, she's not possessed by jinn. She has some mental issues. I've just had a conversation with her, I've asked her some questions, I've done my quick homework. I said, no, she's not possessed by jinn. You need specialists to help her. And alhamdulillah, they were very obedient. They listened to me and they went to the specialist. And alhamdulillah, she was fine. After medication, she just went back to her normal life. But guess if they did not convince. They were convinced that this is jinn and you have to read Quran, and Quran, it won't heal her. Of course, the Quran is the healer, but if she needs medication, the Quran will not do this. Be careful. So, sabr and taqwa, we need this, definitely. We need tawakkul, of course, because sometimes it's lack of tawakkul. I'm going to fail the exam, I'm going to... Have tawakkul on Allah. Yes, you've done your homework, leave the rest to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So you need to boost your yaqeen. The yaqeen is the certainty. I'm not relying on my muscles or brain or intellect or preparation. I've done my homework and I leave it to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's it. This is part of our iman. To have yaqeen, certainty. And this will change your life, believe me. The more we have yaqeen in Allah Azza wa Jal, the more we get what we are after. I can assure you. If you don't believe it, try it. But it takes time to get into the right level of yaqeen. But you rather start now, because it takes some time. And from these verses as well, I read Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saying that you should remember the blessings of Allah Azza wa Jal. It's one of the tips to heal you. Instead of just focusing on the dark side, there are plenty of bright sides in your life. And I see this as well in Al-Fatiha, which I call it the healer. One of the names of Al-Fatiha, by the way, is called Surah Al-Shifa. Al-Fatiha is the healer, Surah Al-Shifa. So I'll just pick one ayah from Al-Fatiha. The very first ayah actually, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. And this is anti-depression. This ayah is an anti-depression ayah. How come? Because Allah is teaching the ummah to be grateful, to get into the station of gratitude, to be positive, to be optimistic, to be a person who can see goodness in others, and everywhere he looks he sees goodness. Reverse it and see those who cannot see but evil, those who cannot see but bad things, those who cannot see but pessimism. As smile is contagious, yes, genuine smile is contagious. Anxiety and depression is contagious. If you are close to somebody who's very depressed, it drops on you. I can tell you from experience. And when somebody talks to me over and over, I don't want to talk to him anymore. I feel, to be honest, depressed. It's a stone on my chest. I won't pick the phone and answer his calls. I've been affected by him. I don't want to answer his calls anymore. So it is contagious, so you need to be careful. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned the importance of tawbah, repentance, and seeking forgiveness. This is from spiritual level. Of course, it's been proven even scientifically. If you have a belief, regardless, of course, we as Muslims, we think that this is their belief which we are after. It helps you to heal better. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala here is asking us to do repentance and seek forgiveness. Sins, mistakes, and stuff like this clouds your vision and clouds your heart. So you cannot see properly. You cannot see properly. You cannot function properly. So when you do istighfar, it creates a space which you need to function and to move freely. Otherwise you are shackled by your sins, and more likely sometimes rewinding as well, going back to history, which will pull you back instead of giving you a booster to the future. The second thing, or the third thing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned here, longing for the akhirah and seeking Jannah in these verses. So Allah Azza wa Jalla is treating the community and telling them, okay, it's not the last thing you are doing now. There are plenty of other things, but think about the akhirah. Even if you have some difficulties here, even if you have some challenges, but this is worth it, because this is what makes you better. And of course, I do distinguish between two things. Some pain is useful and makes you stronger, but a lot of pain is not good. It breaks you. And I'm not talking about a lot of pain. You have to tolerate and have sabr. No. This is unhealthy. Some pain, fine. It makes you stronger, but not a lot of pain. As in some marriages, which was my topic today in my khutbah. Some marriages is a synonym of pain. So marriage means pain. Then we live all our life with pain. No, it's not healthy. We need to stop this pain. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned the importance of believing in the truth and following the truth. Because sometimes, at some point, we lose faith in anything. And I know some people, through depression, they even went to kufr. Kufr. May Allah protect us. And is it possible? Yes. It happened with even, it's not a secret, with even some top scholars. Very top scholars, it happened with them. Without naming. Yes, and some of them went off-site for so many years to regain his sanity to come back to the community. It's not a secret. He was ill. Yes? So he's a human at the end of the day. So don't think if he's a sheikh or he's a top scholar or whatever, it means he's an angel. No, he's a human. And he has illness as anyone else. We might think sometimes just that doctors never get ill. No, they are humans also. They get ill. And the barber, his hair never grew. No. So it's just these perceptions which we have sometimes, which is wrong. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about the acknowledgement which you already mentioned. Allah mentioned this. Facing your reality instead of escaping your reality. قُلْ هُوَ مِنْ عِنْدِ أَنفُسِكُمْ. So he was talking about what happened in Badr and the defeat which you got and the disobedience which you've done to your Prophet ﷺ. Because of this, because of what you have earned, it led you to this defeat. So acknowledging that yes, I have committed this mistake, I have this problem, it is in existence, I cannot escape it. Of course, with kindness and gentleness, you do not need to be brutal and bold in your face approach, but nevertheless, we need to acknowledge that we have a problem to seek help. Otherwise, I'm okay. No, I'm not okay. I'm suffering. And whenever you ask somebody, especially if they are controlled by the culture, as many of us, unfortunately, how are you? I'm okay. And deep down, he's not, or she's not. They are suffering and just dying internally because they cannot face their problem, they cannot face the stigma, they cannot face the community. No, we need to face it. And Allah taught us how to face it. And as well, Allah mentioned here, avoid having the wrong people around you. Those who will pull you back, avoid being in their company. Avoid. Because this is the last thing you want. When you are depressed or when you are sad, or don't go around these people. They will just make you drown instead of save you. And I was, to be honest with you, I was so surprised when I read these verses. I said, wow, the Quran is just addressing the importance of how to get out of this hole or how to get out of this cycle. And among the other things which Allah mentioned, understanding the qadr of Allah. Because many times, I have plenty of cases, misunderstanding qadr, destiny, takes people to different direction in their life. And I have a youngster in his 20-ish. He's just getting into sort of atheism because of misunderstanding of destiny. So it started with depression, and then from depression it went to this, and then doubt of everything and anything, and I've sat with him for a while. The bottom line, to cut a long story short, he misunderstood what destiny is. He misunderstood what's going on. How Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the all-wise, the almighty, decides things and wrote things. So we need to understand destiny. This is one point, and very relevant to this is the free will. Do we have a free will or not? Many people believe that we have, but in reality, when you question them, they do not understand what free will means. And they mix the free will with destiny, with what has been written, and with the pleasure of Allah and with Allah's knowledge, and all these things they bring it together and treat it as one. Completely wrong. These are separate items, and every single item works in a different way. So it's wrong to bring all these things together and say, yes, Allah destined this for me, now I'm obliged to do this, so how come I'm accountable? Wrong. It's another topic for another time, inshallah. But nevertheless, this brings depression as well. If he didn't understand or she didn't understand how destiny function or work, they can go in all different directions. And understanding that we have continuous tests. We all feel tests, of course, different levels of fear, yes, but we have a continuous test. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned many times in the Quran to test you. To test you. So the level of this very test, it varies from time to time, from person to person, depends on your journey, depends on which level you are. So this test is ongoing, so you need to be prepared for that. It's not a rosy life, it's not a airy-fairy life, it isn't. It is full of tests, but nevertheless we shouldn't make it very pessimistic. It has challenges, but as well it has plenty of good things, it has plenty of goodness in it. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is teaching us in these verses. And just I gave you one sample from Surah Al-Imran. Inshallah, I'm planning later to make it as a book, inshallah ta'ala. One sample that the rehabilitation through the Quran. What are the tips which Allah has given subhanahu wa ta'ala to people to benefit from, and how can this make them better in their life, make them better in their relationship with Allah. And sometimes even some people who are very depressed, they cannot pray, which is not a new news, to be honest. They cannot pray. If they cannot pray, we don't say don't pray, but we say pray as much as you can. When you are focused, pray. Don't break this not habit, this ibadah from your life. Try your best, but if you cannot pray, then there's something wrong in him or in her. So they need help, and we shouldn't shun away from seeking help. I know it's not a very common topic in our community, and nevertheless it's not just our community. The stigma of mental illness is not in the Muslim community alone, in any community, of course, but we are more conservative than other communities regarding this. But we need to seek help. If there's a real problem, then yes, as we mentioned, that we try our best. If it didn't work, then fine, we need to seek help. You recited Quran, you try to read some ruqya, you try to do supplications all the way through, but you still feel down, then you need support. And it doesn't mean you go to the mosque and then the imam will do ruqya on you and then rip you off with £300 or £400, this scandal on the YouTube, what have you. We need to have the right people in the right place. So ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to enable us to get the right understanding and the right practice, and to be able to deliver the right thing to our community.
Just to kick things off, I've got a couple of questions here that were sent in by somebody. We did invite people, if they wanted to submit questions anonymously. I've got a question here, and I'd like to ask what Islam says about depression, as often people are quick to quote that if you're a believing person, you shouldn't be depressed. Shaykh Tamim.
It's not true. I've already answered this question. I told you there are top scholars went through depression. It's an illness as anything else. So who said if you are a believer you won't get flu, for instance? They are two separate things. So, does it contradict your belief to have a flu? Of course not. Then, the same.
Okay, but, I mean, Iman, you're sort of on the chalk phase, if you like, the cold phase. Do you find that attitude sort of particularly pervades among your Muslim clients and your Muslim patients?
Absolutely. But not all of them, I think. There is a generational difference. I would say that...
Yeah, your generation. Come on.
uh,
Our generation,
young
they
people.
are still in their caves, with my respect. Yes.
Yeah, so we can get them out of those caves, hopefully, by kind of the people attending in this audience, for example. Just looking around, there are different generations in here. So if we do our duties in terms of communicating, whether it's our parents, and like I said, there's a way to do it. So if we recognize that there is a generational difference, we can go, oh, you just don't get it. Oh, you're just so uneducated. Oh, look at, Dr. Susan, I don't know who, she said this. And it's not about that. It's more about, okay, how do you approach our elders generally in a way that is with respect as well. So it's not about kind of we know more than you. It's more that we have different challenges and experiences, but we can experience them in a similar way. So our elders have gone through a lot. Are going through a lot as well. So in terms of, like I said, labeling, a lot of people are going through anxiety and depression, but it's just not labeled that way. So if we go through the pathway of how do we treat the symptoms in a way, or how do we address the fact that you're going through a downtime, that could be a place to address that similarity, to bridge the gap, rather than saying, actually, that is depression and these are the symptoms, and go online and check this article. That might not always work. And sometimes it takes a shaykh that is, enlightened on the topic, or not even kind of just open with his conversation in terms of mental health. So hearing the fact that, oh, actually, if you have the flu or you have a mental illness that's very similar, that could resonate with a lot of people. And that could start the conversation as well. So there are different, I'm hopeful actually. So some might be in caves, but others are coming out, I think. So that's my optimism.
Okay, and I've got sort of part two to the same question. I'll read it out sort of verbatim. What if you're surrounded by depressed people, both at home and at work, and you yourself are trying to deal with a number of your own personal traumas, for example, divorce? What does Islam say about elderly parents who may say upsetting things and behave in a very non-supportive and non-committal way? Iman?
Welcome to counselling. So my job is to listen to people on a daily basis who are going through struggles. I, as a human being, go through my own struggles as well. So that's something very common actually in my profession. A lot of professionals go through a tough time just dealing with that. So I know that question is more on a personal perspective. So if you're dealing with people around you going through something, make sure you have something external to that support system. So if that person is constantly in your life, whether you're supporting them, whether you're living with them, make sure that you're not the only point of contact with that person. Make sure to get other people, create a social circle around them that's not just you. Make sure that you get them the help that they need. There's so much, I think, I don't want to just throw out information, but it's quite common actually, like Haytham said, if you're around someone that is feeling a certain way, sometimes you tend to feel that way as well, which is why I encourage helping someone but not taking on the role of the healer, because that is almost impossible. We can't, if they don't have the capacity, if they're not ready at that moment in time, it is not our responsibility. Even as a counselor, it is not my responsibility to say, actually, I'm going to take all your pain away. It's more about, no, we have to work through this. We have to develop skills for you to be able to handle this. Obviously, I'll listen to you, I'll support you, but you can't take on all of that feeling yourself, because it will bring you down. And you, at the same time, you're going through your own stuff. You're going through a divorce, going through university, going through some sort of career change that can bring you down. So make sure you're not the only point of contact. Make sure you are resourceful and find other people in the community that can help, whether it's family members or professionals. That helps.
Okay, thank you very much. Right, I was going to say, I want to open things up to you, the audience now, so we've got about 15 minutes or so. So if you'd like to ask questions to either of the panellists, just put your hands up. Yeah, lady here in the strawberry shop.
Hi, thank you both for your time. I have a question for Shaykh Tamim. You drew reference to layers 120 to 118 to phenomenon about the role of the community. Could you perhaps summarise those areas? I mean, because you made reference about the role of the community in supporting with alleviating depression. And I just maybe fleshed out.
The summary of these verses, I already just put some points on these verses, just which is relevant to rehabilitation and healing, and getting back on your feet and boosting your confidence. So Allah in many of these verses was boosting the confidence. So we need a confidence booster if you want. وَلَا تَهِنُوا وَلَا تَحْزَنُوا وَأَنْتُمُ الْأَعْلَوْنَ إِن كُنتُم مُؤْمِنِينَ. So if you are true believers, you shouldn't be so sad, a sadness which shackle you from doing any good, and these kind of things. So it's boosting the confidence, so important. We know this when we do our job with our children, for instance. If someone was sad at something, you come and tell them that you are better than this, you can come over this, you are so strong, even if he was not. But you want him to feel that he's strong and he can overcome these problems. So this is what Allah Azza wa Jalla is telling us in these verses. That you can go over these problems, but learn the lesson. So don't ignore what you went through. Learn the lesson, and this will make you stronger, actually. Had it not been the defeat in Utrujj, we will never have this healing system, which Allah mentioned in Surah Al-Imran after the defeat in Utrujj. So imagine the Utrujj was victory. Then the verses will not touch upon this in any shape or form. So it was good, although it was painful. So sometimes, وَعَسَىٰ أَن تَكْرَهُ شَيْئًا, as Allah stated, you might hate something which is good for you. And you might love something which is bad for you. وَاللَّهُ يَعْلَمُ وَأَنْتُمْ لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. So Allah knows better than us what suits us. But we need to have, again, yaqeen. And one of the very important things which I didn't mention, Allah Azza wa Jalla in these verses, He mentioned that you have to have a good opinion about Allah. In the Hadith al-Qudsi, Allah says, أَنَا عِنْدَ ظَنِّ عَبْدِي بِي. I am as my servant think of me. So if you have a good opinion about Allah, then you have good opinion. If not, then it's you who decides. I will get it because I trust Him. You will get it. I'm not very sure, you won't get it. 1 milli of doubt, you won't get it. I can tell you. And this is against certainty and yaqeen. Yaqeen, 100%. I trust Allah Azza wa Jal 100%. Again, I told you, it needs training. I went through this training many times. I failed many times. I can tell you, I'm still failing as well. But keep trying. Yes, so keep trying. It gives you a different flavor, to be honest with you. The more you boost your yaqeen in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the more you start see things around you in a different lens. Not 3D, not 4D, something you will experience. Inshallah.
Yeah, they don't hear.
Is depression genetic?
That's probably very controversial. Iman.
Some research shows that it could be, yes.
But how would you know and how can you avoid it? What would be the symptoms if it's genetic? Is it from a childhood or is it a later stage of your life?
So normally, when it comes to genetics, it doesn't mean that the child will necessarily have depression. So normally it's if there are external triggers, so environmental factors that can bring out depression. So it could be that it is genetic, but the child has an environment, a safe environment, is raised in a home that's caring, and the attachment with the parents is fine and all of that, and they grow up kind of feeling okay. But if there's a lot of environmental stressors, that could, some research, like I said, it is kind of controversial.
Can trigger.
Yeah, it can trigger it. But again, like I said, it can be avoided. It can be, in the family environment. And sometimes, even if it does happen, there are, it's still something that can get better. So even if it is genetic, it's not like it's all doom and gloom if your parents have depression. Doesn't mean, oh no, now it's in my blood. It's not like that. I think there's always a way out in a sense. There's always a solution in a sense. That answers your question.
Yeah, gentleman in the middle there. Yeah.
Yeah, Shaykh mentioned depression and anxiety can lead to kufr.
Have I said this?
Yeah. Which is sort of a gunah kabira. Would we not more lenient, more sympathetic, more forgiving? Does it have to be fearless?
It might sometimes. I didn't say that it is a must, that depression, or I prefer to call it sadness and fear. Sometimes, too much of it, it might lead to a different direction in life. I experienced this. I've seen this firsthand with some people around me. Because of depression, he went to atheism, I can assure you. So I started like this, sadness, and then he couldn't understand what the qadar means, and then he started going into too many questions and philosophical stuff, and he has the wrong people around him as well in the university, and some probably professors boosted this in him, and he was so confused, and then he went just into atheism. Not one, not two. I came across at least 4 or 5 scenarios similar. It's not always the case, but sometimes it might be. But it's not a must, of course.
I add to that, actually, that's true. I've also seen it in my practice, and it's normally out of despair, because you said, some of the signs of depression is despair. Why would this happen to me? Why am I feeling so down? And sometimes we might hear these questions when it comes to big traumatic events as well. Why me? Is there even a God? That if there was, why is this suffering happening? And that could be, again, because of depression, because I'm so anxious, I don't know who's taking care of me, I'm going through a lot, and I feel overwhelmed. That can often cause some type of shaking in the foundation of faith. And I've dealt with it kind of in the counseling room, where I would open that discussion up. I would say, I know you look Muslim, and I know that you might think I'm judging you for having these thoughts, but this is the space to process them. This is the place to say, actually, what are you actually thinking? Because some people are even afraid of these thoughts. Why am I thinking this way? So it's kind of a seesaw sometimes, like, oh my God, am I doubting my faith? Am I a bad Muslim? And it goes into a worse cycle. It becomes a full-on, sometimes panic attack, and this is God forsaking me and all of that stuff. So it can go back and forth, but I think allowing that discussion to happen in a safe space, obviously with the right people around, in a way that you can, say, actually, I feel sad that this is happening. I feel like, I'm feeling let down, and all of this comes from sadness, all of this comes from depression and despair, and we have to understand that perspective, be sympathetic towards that.